Tell us a little bit about the studio.
Okay. Well, first of all, the building that we're in, this is part of an estate that was built in the 1920s for a family called the Pitcairns. Raymond Pitcairn, who is the progenitor of the family, was the son of the founder of Pittsburgh Plate Glass. But it's always been in the Pitcairn family.
I see. So
this building was originally a summer home, and it was purchased by the gentleman that I work for, Randall Wallace, who has an interesting history also. His grandfather, Randall's grandfather, was Henry Wallace, who was vice president under Franklin Roosevelt.
Wow.
During World War II in the third term, and was also Secretary of Agriculture of the U.S. for several terms before that, and ran for the presidency in 1948 against Harry Truman and Thomas Dewey.
Wow.
So, Randall has certainly, his family has a history, that's of note, in American history. But, so Randall purchased the property in 1998, and, well before I got involved, and had the idea to have a recording studio, because he was building one in his place in New York, in Manhattan. And that's when they called me. I used to manage Bearsville Studios, and I was an engineer there for a number of years, and worked for Albert Grossman, who founded Bearsville.
Absolutely.
Managed Bob Dylan and Janis Joplin, all these other people. And I got involved with this place kind of slowly at first, and then jumped in. This room that we're in, this is called the Neve Room, as I mentioned before. We actually put this together when we were building the other studio, which is the Great Hall. And, this is a very informal studio. It doesn't have a control room. It's not set up like a typical recording studio.
Sure, yes.
Dead recording spaces and lots of fabric on the walls,
yes,
and all that kind of thing. I mean, this has, this is basically like somebody's house.
Right, sure.
So it's really an elaborate home studio. You could look at it
right.
That way. With a Neve console and Pro Tools HD and Studer tape machines and all the various mics and outboard gear.
And obviously a phenomenal vintage Neve console.
Yeah, it's a Neve 8068. These were popular in the 70s. That's when they were built. And I was mentioning before, we're actually in the process of refurbishing this console. It's in very good condition, but we're replacing all the switches, which get old and have to be replaced. So we've invested a lot of money in that. So it'll run like a console that was built last week, but sound like something that you might expect, from the 70s.
Sure. What are some of the artists that you've recently tracked in this particular facility and also in the Great Room?
Well, let's see. Recently, we did a band called Kent, they're from Scandinavia. They're one of the biggest bands in Scandinavia. We also had Rush, the famous great band from Canada.
Absolutely.
Together 30 years. Rush was just in. They were primarily in the other studio with Nick Raskulinecz, who's their producer, also to the Foo Fighters. And they were doing vocals in here while they were doing guitar overdubs in the other room. So Getty was in here for a couple of weeks doing vocals. They were kind of tag teaming, using the entire facility to do the record. But they were here. They're lovely guys, and they were here for about 6 weeks. In this room, historically, we've done a lot of big records. We did a chunk of Norah Jones's first record in here, Come Away With Me. And then she came back here to do Feels Like Home in the other studio in the Great Hall.
Okay.
And we've done David Bowie. He did his record Heathen was done in here with Tony Visconti. Neil Finn and Ten Finn did a record in here. Liz Wright, who is a jazz singer who records for Verve, has been in here. The Dirty Dozen Brass Band. The Holmes Brothers, who just did a record recently in here, worked in here. Nikolai Dunger, Mercury Rev, dozens.
A who's who of some of the biggest artists in the world.
Yeah. But this is the kind of studio, this and the other room, the entire complex is a place for people to come and get their heads away from where their heads normally are, which is in New York, dealing with business, or in LA, and having record company people stopping by, having management people stop by. When you come up here, you're alone. You can create in solitude. Yeah. You're in a peaceful environment. It's beautiful. There's nothing to distract you. You can go out at night and have a beer or whatever. But we do everything here. We have the accommodations. We have the food. We have a caterer come in and make breakfast, lunch, and dinner for everybody. And so it's a real kind of universe unto itself. And a lot of people don't leave, when they're here. They just plug in, and they don't want even the distraction of leaving. In fact, Ray LaMontagne, who has a great new record out, it's was done in this room, start to finish, including mixing. And Ethan Johns, who was the son of Glenn Johns, you know, the famous
Absolutely.
Glenn Johns who did the Beatles and Led Zeppelin and, you know, various other people. Ethan did the record in here, and he, you know, tracked it, and they wrote a lot of it in here, tracked it, overdubbed it, did all the horns, strings, everything, and mixed it in this room.
Fantastic. Well, I tell you what, Mark, it's an honor for us to have a chance to be able to see this wonderful facility, and we very much appreciate your time this afternoon.
You're watching the Musician Network. Stay tuned.
The Musician Network. We take you there.